In my personal opinion, when you really break it down, there's actually been more good than bad with the Lakers so far. Whether you're talking about DeAndre Ayton or Luka Doncic, both guys have looked really sharp early on. Most of their new additions and overall rotations have started to come together nicely. Sure, the preseason record might not reflect that on paper, but if you're actually watching the games, especially the first halves, it's clear this team has been moving in the right direction. But while the majority of their roster looks locked in and ready to go, there's one player who's been raising some real concern lately. A young player they just drafted a year ago. That player is Dalton Knecht. I don't know exactly what's going on with him or what's happened over these past few months, but his preseason performance has been, to put it bluntly, bad. What makes it confusing is that everything we've heard out of training camp was positive. Reports said he looked fantastic in practice. Even J.J. Redick went on record saying Knecht had been the best offensive player at camp. According to the data, he scored more points than anyone else on the roster during training camp and shot around 60% from the field. But once the lights came on, once it was actual preseason basketball, none of that dominance carried over. Through nearly 30 minutes per game, Knecht has averaged just 9.4 points while shooting a rough 30.4% from the field and a brutal 22.6% from three. For a player who came into this preseason expected to take a leap, those numbers are, well, hard to defend. And what makes this slump even more confusing is the fact that last year, his rookie preseason, he was way more productive. Back then, with no NBA experience at all, he averaged 18 points in just 27 minutes per game. He shot 44% from the field and 36% from three. He even dropped a 30-piece in one of those games and absolutely lit it up from beyond the arc. It honestly doesn't even look like the same guy out there right now. So what happened? Is it a confidence issue? A role issue? A schematic change that doesn't fit his strengths anymore? Something's clearly off, and it's not just the stats. When you watch him play, his rhythm isn't there. His movements feel stiff, the shot release seems rushed, and the swagger he had last season has almost completely disappeared. And this is the same player who, last year, proved he could be a legit rotation option. Throughout the 2024-25 regular season, he averaged 9.1 points per game while shooting 38% from the field. He wasn't just some end-of-bench rookie. He was a steady contributor. Even after the All-Star break, when some people claimed he fell off, the numbers tell a different story. After the trade deadline drama, Knecht still averaged 8.4 points per game and nearly 41% from three. Sure, his role shifted. Sure, his minutes dipped. And defensively, he had his struggles. But overall, he wasn't bad. What we're seeing right now, though, is the frustrating part is how drastically different this version of Knecht looks. It's like the confident, smooth-scoring wing from last season is nowhere to be found. Instead, he's playing hesitantly, second-guessing shots, overthinking plays, and missing the kind of looks he used to bury with ease. And it's not like the Lakers are short on opportunities. With their current rotation structure, Knecht's had plenty of minutes to showcase himself in the preseason. It's not like he's playing 10 minutes and riding the bench. He's getting real reps. Yet, he's not converting on them. Now, does this mean he's doomed? Absolutely not. Young players go through slumps all the time. Sometimes it's mental, sometimes it's about adjusting to a different role, and sometimes it's just about rhythm and confidence. We've seen guys look lost in preseason before, only to bounce back once the real games start. But the Lakers have decisions to make. They've built a roster that has both win-now pieces and young developing talent. If Knecht doesn't find his footing soon, he could quickly find himself sliding down the rotation, especially with veterans performing well. This is where coaching becomes huge. If it's a confidence issue, it's fixable with the right approach. If it's a role or fit problem, that might be trickier, but not impossible to solve. A lot will depend on how both Knecht and the Lakers staff respond to this early adversity. One thing's clear, this is a crucial stretch for Dalton Knecht. The preseason might not define his career, but it could shape the way this season plays out for him. If he finds that fire again, this whole stretch might just be a footnote. But if he doesn't, the Lakers could have some tough choices ahead. Either way, this situation is worth watching closely. Because last year's version of Knecht was electric, and right now, Lakers fans are just hoping to see that player again. Let's be real here. Throughout this entire preseason, Dalton Knecht just hasn't been good. Not shooting well from the field, not bringing any defensive impact to make up for it, and not contributing in any meaningful way on either end of the floor. This isn't just a small cold stretch, it's been an issue for months now. Even if we rewind back to the summer league against lower-level competition, the same struggles were there. He averaged only 12 points per game on a rough 32.1% from the field and an even worse 24% from three. And let's be honest, defense was never supposed to be his calling card anyway. He was drafted to be a knockdown shooter, a real floor spacer who can change the geometry of the court. So if he's not bringing elite shooting, then what exactly is he bringing right now? That's the problem. When you look at Knecht's skill set, three-point shooting has to be the thing. That's his identity. Even if he never develops into a great defender, or even an average one, he has to be a consistent weapon from deep. Not just efficient in small spurts, but dangerous on real volume. A smart off-ball mover who stretches defenses, creates spacing, and hits big shots. That's the version of him the Lakers drafted for. But it simply hasn't looked like that for a long time now. This isn't just about a few bad games in preseason. The cold streak goes all the way back to the end of last season, late March into April, when he wasn't even part of their postseason rotation. Then came the Summer League, and now, another underwhelming preseason. This is officially a trend, and trends have consequences. According to reports, including Dan Woik of The Athletics, Knecht is now being viewed around the league as a negative trade asset. That was something floated earlier in the summer. People debated it, some dismissed it. But now, after this stretch of poor play, those concerns have pretty much been confirmed. He hasn't given the Lakers or any other team a reason to believe otherwise. And look, training camp reports mean nothing if it doesn't translate to real 5-on-5 action. You can shoot 60% in practice all day long, but if it doesn't show up when the lights are on, when the games count, that confidence fades fast. And unfortunately for Knecht, his on-court performance has been below average for too long now. What makes things even worse is the timing. LeBron James is hurt. That injury opened up a golden opportunity in the rotation, a spot many believed Knecht was the frontrunner to fill. This was his moment to prove he could contribute meaningful minutes. But instead of stepping up, he's simply not taking advantage of it. If the Lakers do indeed run a 9 or 10-man rotation, which many insiders believe they will, Knecht had a real shot to be part of it. With LeBron out, the path was clear. But with him playing poorly, missing open looks, and not providing any defensive value, that spot may now go to someone else. There are names already in the conversation. If Maxi Kleber can get and stay healthy, he's probably the favorite to take that spot. Or maybe Duop Reith if he's ready to contribute consistently. Even young guys like Bronny James or other rotation wings could step in. At this point, nothing's guaranteed for Knecht because he hasn't done anything to make himself a lock. That's the harsh reality of the NBA. Opportunities don't come around often. And when they do, you have to grab them. Knecht had one handed to him on a silver platter, and he's letting it slip away. But now comes the big question. Does this mean it's time to give up on Dalton Knecht? That the Lakers should just move on and cut their losses on a player who now reportedly has negative trade value? Is there really no hope left for him to bounce back? Honestly, I wouldn't go that far. Yes, the recent stretch has been rough. No doubt about it. He hasn't looked good in Summer League. He hasn't looked good in preseason. And everything the public has been able to watch hasn't been encouraging. But that doesn't erase what we saw from him before this slump. This is still the same player who, when given a chance to start last season, averaged 17 points per game on strong efficiency. This is the same guy who showed he can hit shots at a high clip when he's in rhythm. You can point to actual production, not just hype, not just practice reports, but real on-court results. And sometimes, players hit walls. It happens. For young shooters, confidence is everything. A couple of bad stretches can spiral into a slump if you don't have the right support system around you. But slumps don't define careers. How players respond to them does. The Lakers' coaching staff will have to make some tough calls here. If it's a confidence issue, that's fixable. If it's a role problem, adjustments can be made. If it's just poor rhythm, time and reps can help him rediscover his stroke. But if he doesn't show signs of turning it around soon, the front office will have no choice but to reconsider how he fits into their long-term plans. Right now, the ball is in Knecht's court. Literally. This is a defining stretch for him. He doesn't need to be perfect overnight, but he does need to remind everyone, including the Lakers and the rest of the league, why he was drafted to be that shooting threat in the first place. If he can find that touch again, this narrative could flip fast. But if not, then yeah, this slump might turn into something a lot more serious. The Lakers need floor spacers. They need shooters. And this is Knecht's moment to prove he can be one. At the end of the day, this isn't about completely giving up on Dalton Knecht. It's about getting him back to the version of himself we saw last season, or at least something close to it. And honestly, I think that's still possible. In fact, it might even be more realistic than people are giving it credit for. Yes, the numbers in preseason and summer league have been rough. There's no denying that. But when you zoom out and look at the full picture, there are other factors here that deserve attention. One of the biggest? His supporting cast. Or rather, the lack of it. Knecht isn't really an on-ball shot creator. He can do it sometimes, but it's not his bread and butter. What makes him dangerous is his off-ball movement, slipping through screens, curling into open space, and letting playmakers find him in rhythm. That's when he looks like a real weapon. But lately, he hasn't had those playmakers on the floor with him. Think about it. During Summer League, his primary point guard was Bronny James. And let's be honest, Bronny isn't a natural floor general right now. In preseason, Knecht has barely played with Luka Doncic, hasn't shared the court with LeBron James, and has only had limited minutes with Austin Reeves. That matters. A lot. When shooters don't have playmakers to feed them in their spots, everything gets harder. The offense has been clunky, less fluid, and not built to get him clean looks. Compare that to last regular season when he was often playing alongside LeBron, Austin, and Anthony Davis guys who attract massive defensive attention and create high-quality opportunities for everyone else. Knecht thrived in that environment. Right now, he's trying to find a rhythm without it. I'm not saying this excuses his struggles. Far from it. He has absolutely missed shots he should make. His three-point stroke doesn't look as confident, and he hasn't brought much on the defensive end either. But it's also fair to say that the context around him hasn't been ideal. When your game relies heavily on movement and rhythm, and the guys around you can't consistently create those opportunities, it's going to show. It's going to affect confidence, timing, and production. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now with Knecht. That's why I'm not ready to close the book on him. If you put him back on the floor with real playmakers, Luka, Austin, LeBron, guys who can actually get him open, draw help, and free him up within the offense, I think we'll see a different player. Maybe not the exact same explosive version from last preseason, but something close enough to remind people why the Lakers drafted him in the first place. This slump doesn't define his ceiling, but it will define how he responds. Now, to be clear, he doesn't get unlimited time to figure it out. With the rotation still taking shape, there's a real opening for someone to grab that 10th spot in the early part of the season, especially while LeBron is recovering. That door is still open for Knecht, but if he doesn't walk through it fast, someone else will. It could be Maxi Kleber if he's healthy. It could be Duop Reith, maybe even a mix of Bronny, other wings, or shooters who just make more of their minutes. Nothing is guaranteed in this league. The Lakers want production now, not promises. That's why the early regular season is going to be crucial for Knecht. These next few games might decide whether he's part of the rotation or buried on the bench. He needs to hit shots. He needs to show confidence. He needs to remind everyone, including the coaching staff, what he brings to the table when things are clicking. And here's the thing. He's already done it before. We've seen him catch fire, stretch defenses, and play winning basketball. This isn't about proving he can do it. It's about proving he can do it again. I'll say this clearly. I'm not absolving him of responsibility. He has to own his poor shooting and lack of impact. But I'm also not going to ignore the circumstances around him. Bad fit, lack of playmaking, and awkward rotations can sink even good shooters. The path forward is simple, but not easy. Play alongside real playmakers, rediscover the rhythm, and start hitting shots again. That's how he changes the narrative. That's how he earns back trust. And that's how he makes people forget about the negative trade asset talk that's been floating around. So no, I'm not giving up on Dalton Knecht yet. I still believe he can be a valuable rotation player for this team if the pieces around him fit. But this stretch, this is the moment that will define which direction things go. What about you? Are you ready to move on from Dalton Knecht? Do you still see a bounce back in his future? Or do you think this slump is who he really is? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear what you guys think. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on future uploads. As always, thanks for watching. Let's see